It seems that some people, at least in corporate media, are starting to pay attention to Donald's increasing difficulty being coherent, completing a thought, just staying on point, connecting dots. Um, he's never been a particularly articulate person, but there is a vastly noticeable difference. And I've basically been thinking about how, as much as it's worse, it's not different. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, for years now, has been bragging about passing or acing a very basic cognitive test. And the truth of the matter is, Donald Trump has been failing the cognitive test for a very long time. He's been failing other tests as well. He's a failure as a human being. He has no empathy. He's a failure as a moral being. He's amoral. But I wanted to focus on the cognitive stuff for a second. When he was still in the White House, then White House doctor, and sadly now Congressman Ronnie Jackson, who, in addition to being just a horrible person, is also something of a quack, administered something called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment to Donald. This is essentially a screening exam that's given by doctors who think their patients might be suffering from early stages of dementia or Alzheimer's. If you take the MOCA, as its acronym is called, you're supposed to pass it. Everybody is supposed to pass it. A passing grade is something like 94 out of 100, okay? The fact that your doctor thinks you need to take it is potentially problematic, but getting lower than a 94 suggests that you are starting to have some cognitive issues. One of the questions is to identify a camel or to count backwards from 100 by sevens. I mean, it's just absurdly easy. And I think I said this to Lawrence O'Donnell years ago. It's like, the fact that he brags about passing that test is to fail the test because, again, you're supposed to pass that test. If you don't, it means there's something wrong. So we can look at much of Donald's performances in the last few years as continuing failures of the cognitive test. His reaction to the 2020 election, his inciting of an insurrection. Now, obviously, these were also moral failings and characterological failings, but they also pointed to this psychological and emotional inability to deal with reality. The debate most recently was a massive failure of the cognitive test. And the way in which he talks about the debate, the fact that he's claiming this massive victory that did not exist, the fact that he actually said that one of the reasons he believes he won so resoundingly is because of how the audience reacted to the debate in real time, when in fact there was no audience at the last debate. Not entirely sure who he's talking to, but what I do know is that Donald's fear of failure is so deep, so intense, that he needs to make up his own delusional system so that he can convince himself and, for him, hopefully convince other people that his lies are truth, that his version is the factual one, when in case that is not the case at all. So we have a choice to make. It seems like a very obvious one to me. A neuropsychiatrist put it this way a few months ago when President Biden was still in the race. He said, this is the difference. President Biden is aging. Donald Trump is dementing. All right, well, for reasons that are beyond my comprehension, people thought that normal aging was somehow worse than dementing. I guess it's because Donald's really loud about it and President Biden was quieter. I don't know. It's something we're going to have to figure out eventually. But that's not the contest anymore. The contest is now Donald Trump, 78-year-old dementing Donald Trump, versus almost 20-year younger, very sharp, very prepared, very smart Vice President Kamala Harris, which makes the contrast between what it means to be a normally functioning, intelligent person who understands how to make a point, understands nuance, can grasp all sides of the argument, versus a guy who couldn't argue his way out of a paper bag. Now, we have a test to pass. We failed that test in 2016. We barely made it by the skin of our teeth in 2020. We've been failing ever since then. And that test is this. Who do we want to be as a country? Who do we want leading us? What do we want our leaders to inspire in us? Do we want to be led by somebody who thrives on our division, who really champions the worst among us, who believes in things, or at least purports to believe in things like white supremacy and Christian nationalism and his own completely fictional superiority? Somebody who would sell this government for parts to enrich himself and his family? Or do we want a leader who will try to unite us, who believes in the fundamental concept of democracy, and who will do everything in her power to strengthen what Donald Trump and the Republican Party have weakened? That is our test to pass. It is entirely up to us how this goes down. Now, I know that Democrats, or I should say anybody who believes in democracy, is fighting this with one hand tied behind our backs because of structural problems that we've never fixed, like gerrymandering, the Electoral College, etc. Plus, of course, we now have one of our two major parties, the Republican Party, that has shown itself entirely willing to cheat and steal to stay in power. They don't care if the power is illegitimate. They just care about getting it back, and they will do anything if they do get it back to keep it. So yeah, not only are the stakes high, so are the hurdles. But we can do this. There are enough of us to make sure that Donald Trump loses by a massive margin. Again, it may not be a massive margin at the Electoral College level because our system, quite frankly, sucks so badly. But having a massive popular vote win will not ensure, but at least give us a better chance at doing well down ballot, taking over the House, hopefully with a massive margin, increasing our margin in the Senate, flipping state legislatures and governorships, right? It is not enough. I said this in 2020. We need to make sure that Donald Trump loses badly. Yes, absolutely. But it is not enough. The entire Republican Party needs to be shown that we don't accept them, and we don't trust them with power. We didn't do that in 2020. Republicans outperformed Donald Trump, which made it impossible for us to do the work that needs to be done in order for this country to become a stronger, more representative democracy. We've been spending the last 4 years fighting a rearguard action against fascism while Donald Trump has been allowed to get stronger. Think about that. He didn't do that on his own. He did that with the help of the Republican Party. So it is up to us. And I wholeheartedly believe that we can do this.